The wrench slipped, grazing his knuckle. A streak of blood joined the motor oil already caked on his hands. Raymond didn't flinch. He wiped it on a rag tucked into his back pocket and leaned further under the car. The morning sun had barely risen, but his uniform was already soaked with sweat and grit. Oldies played faintly from the cracked radio on the tool bench, a tune his wife used to hum. She was gone now, but the sound still stayed. "Ray," called Marty, the garage owner, not looking up from a clipboard. "Lunch break starts in 10. You clocking out or skipping again?" Raymond offered a half smile. "Gotta get by." He slipped a folded $10 bill into a worn envelope, scribbled "violin class for Lily" on the front, and tucked it gently into his lunch pail. The pail was empty otherwise. Outside, the wind smelled of rust and exhaust. The bus station sat 2 blocks away, its bench painted in peeling yellow. Raymond liked walking past it on quiet days. Reminded him the world was still moving, even if he wasn't. As he approached, he slowed. There, sitting alone on the cold metal bench, was a girl in a bright red coat. Her suitcase was propped beside her, head bowed, shoulders trembling. A soft sound rose through the noise of traffic, not quite crying, not quite talking. A muffled, broken sob. Raymond stopped in his tracks. She didn't look up, didn't know he was there, but something in her posture, the way she curled into herself like she was trying to disappear, made his chest tighten. He looked at his wallet, then back at her, and took a slow step forward. "Bus already left?" Raymond asked gently, his voice soft like gravel worn smooth. The girl flinched, startled. She wiped her eyes quickly and shook her head without meeting his gaze. "It's coming. In 10. Her accent was faint. "City girl, maybe." She clutched her small purse like it held the world. "You okay?" he added, careful not to sit too close. She hesitated, then whispered, "I lost my wallet, somewhere between here and the coffee shop. Cards, cash, everything." Raymond nodded slowly. He didn't press. He just looked down at her suitcase, worn at the corners, taped handle, and then up at the sky. The clouds were heavy, like they might open up and pour on them any second. "I could." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled 20. "This'll cover you to the city." She blinked. "You don't even know me," he shrugged. "You looked like someone who needed a ride more than I needed lunch." Her lips quivered into the beginning of a smile, a disbelieving one. "I'll pay you back," he shook his head. "Nah, just pay it forward someday." She took the bill carefully, like it might vanish if she breathed too hard. The bus turned the corner, hissed to a stop. She stood, brushing her coat. Before stepping on, she turned back, eyes finally meeting his. "What's your name?" Raymond looked away from her eyes and toward the engine of the bus, then back at his hands, blackened with oil and sacrifice. He offered a small, worn smile. Just a mechanic, and with that, she was gone. But the moment stayed, like warmth in winter, like a note hanging in the air, long after the music stops. The garage door groaned as it rolled up, revealing a floor streaked with grease and a half-dismantled Dodge on the lift. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like flies that never rested. Raymond stepped back into the noise and grit like a soldier returning to the front line. "Late again," Marty barked from behind the service desk, tapping his watch. 15 minutes ain't just 15 minutes when customers waitin'." Raymond pulled on his gloves without a word. "You think kindness pays the rent?" Marty added. "This ain't church." Raymond knelt beside a busted brake line. "Just had a moment," Marty grunted. "Moments don't tighten bolts." The rest of the day dragged on, metal clanging, sweat dripping, and no break for lunch. By 6:30 his back throbbed, hands cramped, and his heart pulsed in that quiet, tired rhythm known only to men who carried too much in silence. As the sun dipped low, Raymond packed up. The envelope in his lunch pail was still untouched. He rubbed his chest absently, where hunger sat next to pride, and headed home. The apartment was small, second floor, one window. But the sound that met him at the door made it worth everything. "Daddy!" Lily ran into his arms, her curls bouncing. "I practiced that song you like." Raymond smiled and knelt. "The slow one?" She nodded, eyes shining. "The one Mama used to play?" He kissed her forehead, the weight of the day slipping for a moment. But then she asked it. Quietly, carefully. "Can I still go to violin class this month?" He froze. The 20 was gone. The envelope was thin. And in that still second, Raymond's world cracked a little. He forced a smile. "We'll figure it out, Bug." But his eyes drifted to the empty envelope on the counter, and stayed there. The next morning, the alley behind the garage buzzed like usual, coffee steam mixing with exhaust fumes, the scent of rubber and rust clinging to the air. Raymond wiped down the hood of a customer's pickup, humming under his breath. Same old song, same old oil stains, until he noticed something didn't belong. A sleek black limousine idled at the mouth of the alley, too long for the turn, too clean for this part of town. Its tinted windows reflected the rusted garage sign like a cracked mirror trying to pretend it belonged. Marty stepped outside and squinted. "What the hell's a car like that doing here?" Raymond kept working. Lost, probably, but the limo didn't move, didn't honk, just waited, quiet and deliberate. A few mechanics paused to gawk, rags slung over shoulders. Then the rear door clicked open, and out stepped a man in a jet-black suit and crisp gloves. Not the kind of man who ever touched grease. Not the kind who ever needed to. He looked around once, then walked straight toward Raymond with mechanical precision. "You, Mr. Raymond?" Raymond blinked, straightened. "Yeah, who's asking?" The man smiled with all the warmth of polished marble. "You've been requested. Car's waiting." Raymond looked down at his stained coveralls, then at the limo again. Requested? For what? But the man didn't answer, just stepped aside and gestured to the open door, where soft jazz floated out from within. And suddenly, the alley felt too narrow, the garage too loud. Raymond glanced at his co-workers, confused faces, curious stares, then back at the man, and for reasons he couldn't explain, he wiped his hands clean on his rag, and took one slow step forward. The elevator rose so smooth, Raymond barely felt it move. He stood awkwardly near the corner, his faded jacket clashing against the mirrored walls. The chauffeur hadn't said a word since they left the garage, and Raymond had stopped trying to ask. When the doors finally opened, soft piano music floated in, classical, distant, like it lived in the marble itself. The penthouse stretched wide with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, cream-colored furniture, polished brass fixtures, orchids that probably had names. Raymond stepped inside slowly, careful not to scuff the floor with his boots. A tall man in a suit greeted him. "You can leave your jacket there, sir." Raymond hesitated, then hung it on a hook that looked more expensive than his car. Another voice followed, sharp, cheerful, but clipped. A woman with a tablet and a tight bun approached. "Mr. Raymond, yes? Please sit. She'll be with you shortly." He nodded, sat on the edge of the velvet couch like it might reject him. His hands rested in his lap, fingers stained with the kind of grease no soap could ever fully clean. A server offered him sparkling water in a glass thinner than air. He shook his head. Then, "Raymond," he turned. The girl from the bus stop. Same red coat, now draped over a designer chair. But she wasn't just a girl anymore. She was radiant, confident, at home in this palace. She smiled, and for a second, she was the same teary-eyed stranger. "I didn't get to thank you," she said. "So I found you." Raymond stood up slowly. "You live here?" She nodded. "I do." He blinked. She stepped closer. "You helped me. I wanted to return the favor." Raymond sat across from her now. The couch still felt too soft, too white, like it would remember every stain he left behind. She handed him a cup of coffee, not poured by a server but by her own hand. "I remembered you said no water," she said gently. He looked up. "So, what is this? Why am I here?" She smiled and sat back, tucking one leg beneath her. "My name's Mira. Mira Valen." The name hit like a jolt. He'd seen it on billboards, heard it in the background of business news at the diner. Mira Valen, founder of Voltiva, the electric car startup making headlines. He blinked. "You're that Mira? Guilty? But you were at a bus stop." She nodded. Got locked out of my office after a system glitch. No wallet, no ID, no assistant. Just me, caffeine, and panic. Raymond let out a breath. You could have called someone. I did. 10 people. No one answered. And I was the guy with a 20 and nothing better to do, he said with a smirk. No, she replied, her tone serious now. You were the one person who helped me when I had nothing. I've never forgotten what that feels like. Raymond looked down into his coffee, then back at her. I wasn't expecting anything, he murmured. It wasn't charity. Just felt like something I should do. Mira leaned forward, eyes soft. So did I. He looked confused. She continued, I've been where you are, Raymond. My father once gave his last 20 to help someone. It changed our lives. She set her cup down. I've been helped before, she said, voice calm but heavy with truth. And I never forgot it. They stood on the balcony now, the city glowing beneath them like a circuit board. Cars crawled like ants. The sky was turning amber. Mira leaned against the glass, arms folded. We're expanding Voltiva's repair division, opening community-based hybrid garages across the state. Raymond stayed quiet, hands in his jacket pockets. I want you to head one, she continued. Manage it. Build a team. Train young mechanics who don't get second chances. Raymond let out a short laugh. Not cruel, just tired. You want me, he said, to run a garage for million-dollar cars? Lady, I work with duct tape and borrowed tools. I want you because you care, she said, and because you've been there. That matters more than polished resumes. He turned to her, expression hardening. I didn't help you for a reward. I know. Then why this? Because good people should be lifted up, not left behind. Raymond looked out at the skyline. The offer dangled between them like bait wrapped in gold. You think giving me a shiny shop erases what I've lived through? No, she said quietly, but maybe it gives your daughter something better to live for. His jaw tightened. The mention of Lily stung, not from offense, but from truth. I don't want pity, he said after a pause. It's not, I said I don't want it. She stepped back, surprised. Raymond turned, walking past the velvet couches, the glass doors, the guards who opened them like he didn't belong. At the elevator, he paused only once. I'm not a project, Mira, I'm just a mechanic. And then the doors closed, leaving her staring at the empty space he'd just filled. Just like the bus bench. Just like before. The garage was quiet. Night had settled like dust over the concrete floor, and the fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead. Everyone else had gone home. Raymond sat at his old wooden workbench, head bowed, staring at the envelope in his hands. It was Lily's lunchbox, and inside, folded neatly between a sandwich and an apple, was something he hadn't seen in years. A letter. The paper was soft, yellowing at the edges. The handwriting, rounded, graceful, immediately tugged something loose in his chest. Layla's writing. He unfolded it slowly, fingers trembling despite the calluses. To Lily, for when you're old enough to understand, your daddy is the strongest man I know, not because he lifts heavy things or fixes cars, but because he carries the weight of two hearts. Mine and yours. Raymond blinked back the sting in his eyes. He won't always say how tired he is. He won't always show you when he's hurting. But you should know this. Every time he skips lunch, every time he misses sleep, every time he comes home quiet, it's for you. The words blurred. He's not just your dad, Lily. He's your shield, your roots, your home. At the bottom, a small note scribbled sideways. If you're reading this, hug him for me. Raymond lowered the paper. And just then, Lily's tiny arms wrapped around his waist from behind. I found it, she whispered. In the old violin case. Raymond closed his eyes. You okay, Daddy? He didn't speak. Just pulled her in tighter, holding her like a man trying not to fall apart. She rested her cheek against his chest and whispered, Mom was right. You don't always say it. But I know. And in that moment, silence said everything. Rain fell in sheets, turning the alley into a river of oil-slick puddles. Thunder rolled overhead like an engine refusing to start. But Raymond didn't care. He was under a broken-down sedan, socket wrench in hand, water dripping down the back of his neck. The garage had closed 2 hours ago. The others were long gone. But he stayed, because work didn't judge. It didn't pity. It didn't ask questions. It just needed doing. Water pooled around the tires. His sleeves were soaked. His stomach ached from skipping dinner. Again, the car wasn't even his. It belonged to Mrs. Delgado down the street. Widow, 2 kids. He'd promised he'd get it running. Raymond grunted and twisted the wrench, the bolt finally loosening with a satisfying crack. He exhaled. Not from relief, but from exhaustion. As he slid out from under the chassis, the rain slapped his face like a reminder. No matter how hard you work, life still drenches you. He stood, wiped his hands on a wet rag and leaned against the hood. For once, he let himself look tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from muscle but from years of being everything to everyone, without ever being asked how he was. Lightning flashed, and in that flicker of white, a black shape appeared at the alley entrance. Long, polished, still, the limo, same one. Same silence. Engine, humming beneath the rain like a secret. Raymond squinted through the downpour, heart slowing. No one stepped out. Not yet, it just waited. Headlights soft and unmoving, like it knew he'd come this time. He took a shaky breath, tossed the rag aside, and walked forward, 1 step, then another. Into the storm. The garage wasn't made of marble or brass, it was concrete and echoes, the kind of space that remembered every word ever shouted inside it. Mira had brought him here, not to her penthouse, not to Voltiva HQ, but to a forgotten warehouse on the edge of town. Raymond ran his fingers along a dusty workbench. Used to be an auto body spot? Used to be, she nodded. Abandoned last year. City offered it for cheap. Most people passed. Why show me this? She smiled. Because this place is you. Honest. Banged up. Still standing, Raymond chuckled dryly, shaking his head. I'm not trying to be a symbol, Mira. I fix cars. I don't run empires. You won't be running mine, she said. You'll be building your own. He looked up slowly. I want to fund a shop, she continued. Not just a Voltiva garage. A space where kids can train. Where ex-cons get second chances. Where single dads don't have to skip lunch to send their daughters to violin class. He blinked hard. She stepped closer, her voice low. You helped me when you had nothing. Let me do the same. Not out of pity. Out of respect. Raymond turned, facing the darkened wall. Old tools still hung like ghosts. I don't want a handout. It's not. It's an investment. In people who don't get investments. Silence filled the room like rainwater. Then softly, build your own shop, Mira said again. I'll fund it. She placed a single sheet of paper on the bench. Name it after her. Raymond stared at the empty space on the header line. Just one line waiting for a name. And his hands trembled. The shop was closed, but the voices weren't. They lingered like ghosts in the break room air. Judgmental, cynical, familiar. You really think you're that guy now? Running your own place? What happens when it fails? She's just trying to feel good about herself. Raymond sat alone on the wooden stool, contract in hand. It was real. The paper was thick. The numbers generous. His name, typed cleanly at the top, felt foreign. The pen sat on the table, unmoved. Outside, someone laughed near the vending machine. Marco, a fellow mechanic, poked his head in. Hey, Ray, you good? Raymond looked up. Yeah. Marco stepped in further. Heard rumors. You leaving? Starting your own shop or something? Something like that, Raymond muttered. Marco shrugged. Don't take this wrong. But guys like us, we don't get shops. We work in them, Raymond nodded slowly. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Marco patted his shoulder, friendly but heavy. Just don't forget where you came from. He left, and the silence came roaring back. Raymond looked around the garage. Stains on the floor. A cracked clock that always ran 10 minutes behind. The familiar hum of a tired light bulb above. This place had raised him, broken him, become his cage. He looked down at the contract again. At the name line. The line he hadn't filled. His hand twitched. Then, without a word, he ripped it straight down the middle, again and again, until it was confetti in his fist. He walked to the trash bin, dropped it in, stared at it, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel relief. He felt hollow. The apartment was still when Raymond opened the door. No cartoons on the TV, no music, just silence thick enough to touch. "Lily?" he called. No answer. He walked past the kitchen table. Her violin case sat open, but empty. His heart sank. He found her in the bedroom, knees pulled to her chest, a folded receipt clutched in her hand. Her cheeks were wet. She looked up, startled, then quickly wiped her face. "What happened?" he asked, stepping inside. "Where's your violin?" She didn't answer. "Lily, I sold it," she whispered. Raymond froze. "What?" She held up the receipt, her bottom lip trembling. "I heard you on the phone last night. About the shop. About not having money." He sank onto the bed beside her, stunned. "You sold your violin?" She nodded. "There's a place on 9th Street. They gave me enough. Maybe you can still do it, Dad. Maybe you can still build something." He covered his mouth, trying to breathe through the ache. "I just wanted to help," she said, her voice breaking. "It's what Mom would have done." Raymond pulled her close, pressing her against his chest. Her fingers, those small, once soft fingers, were red and raw. "You shouldn't have done that," he whispered. "But I wanted to," she replied, crying now. "You always give up everything for me." He didn't speak, didn't know how to. He just held her, rocking gently, as if holding her was the only thing keeping both of them from falling apart. And as she sobbed into his shirt, her little fingers clutched the fabric tight, like they were still playing a song. Only this time, the strings were gone. The sun was just beginning to rise when the knock came. Raymond opened the door, still in his grease-stained shirt from the night before. Mira stood there, no blazer, no driver, no makeup. Just her. Real. In her hands was a small black violin case. "I bought it back," she said softly. The guy remembered her. Said she played something that made him cry. Raymond swallowed hard. She stepped inside, placed the case on the table like an offering, then looked around the tiny apartment. Photos of Lily. One of Layla. A hand-drawn family portrait on the fridge. "This place reminds me of where I grew up," Mira said. "We had a fridge like that. Peeling linoleum. Not much else." He raised an eyebrow. "Didn't take you for the modest beginnings type." "My father was a welder," she said. "Worked nights. Fixed neighbors' cars for free. Never asked for help. Sound familiar?" Raymond looked away. "One night," she continued, "he helped a woman stuck on the freeway, used the last of his gas to drive her home. She turned out to be a partner at a firm that funded small businesses. That's how Voltiva started." Raymond blinked. "Your shop wouldn't be charity. It would be legacy." She stepped closer, voice steady. "You didn't just help me, Ray. You reminded me of him. Of why I do what I do." He didn't respond, but something behind his eyes cracked. Mira looked at the violin case again. "Don't rob your daughter of the future you gave me." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "I had my turn. Because of someone like you." She stepped back toward the door. "Now it's yours." And she left him standing in the doorway. Heart full, hands trembling, future waiting. The old warehouse looked different in the morning light. Brighter. Possible. Raymond stepped through the open bay doors, his boots echoing across concrete. Sunlight poured through cracked windows, catching dust like gold in the air. In his hand was a clipboard. On it, Mira's contract, rewritten, unsigned, but now resting on top was something new. A sheet of paper with a logo sketch and one word, Layla's. He stared at it a long time. Later that afternoon, Lily ran through the space, her curls bouncing, boots too big. She twirled in the wide, empty floor like it was a ballroom. "Is this gonna be yours?" she asked. "Ours," Raymond replied, crouching beside her. She stopped spinning and tilted her head. "What's it called?" He turned the sign around, painted in soft blue script, "Layla's Legacy Garage." Lily's eyes welled up instantly. "Mom's name." Raymond nodded. "She believed in building things. So do I." He stood and walked to the front, taping the sign gently to the dusty window. It leaned slightly. The paint wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was theirs. Behind him, Lily opened the violin case. Mira had returned it with new strings, a soft blue ribbon inside. She lifted the instrument, tucked it beneath her chin, and played a single note. It rang through the warehouse, echoing like memory. Raymond turned slowly, the sound wrapping around him like a hug he hadn't felt in years. She lowered the bow, eyes shining. "Mom would have loved it here." Raymond nodded, words caught in his throat. Lily ran to him and threw her arms around his waist. "She'd be so proud, Daddy." And in the quiet that followed, he finally believed it too. The ribbon fluttered in the breeze, taped across the front doors of Layla's Legacy Garage. It wasn't a red carpet event, but it was real. Neighbors gathered with coffee cups and folded chairs. Old customers from the alley shop showed up in worn boots and Sunday shirts. A few teens from the trade school stood near the back, holding clipboards and grinning nervously. Raymond stood front and center, Lily at his side, holding a pair of oversized scissors. His hands were stained, as always. Grease under the nails, calluses like armor. He didn't scrub it off for the cameras. "This place was built from that oil. Ready?" Lily whispered. He nodded. They cut the ribbon together. Cheers rang out, honest and rough-edged like homegrown applause. Inside, the walls were painted light gray with blue trim. Every workbench had a plaque, "In honor of second chances." On the far wall hung a framed photo of Layla, smiling, her hand resting on baby Lily's shoulder. Raymond stood beneath it, adjusting the frame like it was sacred. The first customer pulled in, Mrs. Delgado. Of course, her old sedan rumbling like an old friend. A teenager from the training crew ran to greet her with a clipboard. Raymond wiped his hands on a rag and walked outside for a moment of air. That's when he saw the black SUV pull up. Not the limo. This time, it was Mira. No heels, no suit. Just jeans, a Voltiva hoodie, and that same quiet smile. "You showed up?" he said. She held out her hand to shake. "No," she grinned, sliding on work gloves. "I came to help." "Got room for one more mechanic?" Raymond laughed. The first real one in a long time, and held the door open wide. Evening settled softly over the town, turning the sky the color of old postcards. Golden near the horizon, bruised blue above. Raymond drove slowly, the garage's name now proudly etched on the side of the Voltiva truck. Layla's Legacy Mobile Crew. His hands still bore the marks of the day's work, but his posture had changed. Taller, lighter, like the weight of years had finally been placed down. As he turned past the corner diner, he saw it. The same bench, same crooked signpost, same cracked pavement. The bus stop. He hadn't driven this way in months, but something tugged at him. A figure sat alone on the bench. Young woman, maybe 20. Thin coat, torn backpack, head bowed. He recognized the posture, the kind that didn't want attention, only mercy. Raymond pulled over without thinking. The window slid down with a soft hum. "Bus already left?" he asked, the exact same way he had all that time ago. She looked up, startled, eyes red, voice shaky. "Not yet, just don't have fare. Lost my wallet." Raymond reached into the glove box, pulled out a crisp bill, folded it neatly, handed it through the window. She hesitated. "Why?" He smiled gently. "Because someone once did the same for me." She blinked, holding the bill like it was something sacred. He nodded toward her bag. "Don't worry about paying me back." She opened her mouth to speak, but he added softly, "Just Pass it on." And with that, he pulled away, the engine humming low. In the mirror, she was still staring after him. The same bench, the same kindness. But now, he was the one driving past, not the one walking away.